Cubit 851, turn right heading 180. Order 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
Hey everyone, welcome to DJ's Aviation. Two Airbus A380s will in the future be operating with Hi Fly, a Portuguese aircraft charter company. The purpose of Hi Fly is to operate aircraft with airlines that may need additional aircraft due to problems with their current fleet. For example, issues with the Trent 1000s on the 787s, maybe a wing issue on an A330, an A350, a 747, and so on. In addition, Hi Fly aircraft are usually found on one-off charter flights. The first Airbus A380, which arrived during the 2018 Farnborough Airshow, was placed on the London Gatwick to New York route with Norwegian Airlines. I have made a video on this, and a card can be found in the top right if you're interested in hearing the details on that. Pretty much though, a lot of positives can be gathered from this sort of operation. The added capacity benefits Norwegian. It'll put the stress off their 787s, which have encountered problems, and passengers who booked a particular class were actually upgraded at no additional cost. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing, as you'll find out in this video. In fact, despite the many positives, they've been outnumbered by a very, very important negative. Before we begin, why did Norwegian even take on board the Airbus A380? Well, it's because of the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines, which you'd know if you've been watching the channel for quite some time, is because there is in fact a problem with them. Hundreds of engines have encountered this problem, and some airlines have had to go as far as grounding their 787s, so Rolls-Royce could fix the fan blades, which were cracking. These problems were noticed during the takeoff procedures. Norwegian just so happens to be one of those carriers which is heavily impacted. The aircraft is operating through a wet lease from London Gatwick to New York JFK, but Norwegian crew aren't on board. There's a set crew with Hi Fly that can be found on the aircraft. Let's get on to the problems. Now we've got a bit of background information on the operations. The key problem is flight delays, which many people are experiencing. In fact, a quick look through Twitter or any other social media platform will actually highlight the struggle that passengers have faced with delays stretching up to 5 hours. In turn, you're leaving at around 10 to 11 PM Gatwick time and arriving in the middle of the night in New York. This is in contrast to the scheduled arrival time of 8:05 PM New York time. Where are these delays coming from? Well, it's airport restrictions that have impacted the aircraft and its operations, and essentially it is human error. You see, the Norwegian flight, which operates Gatwick to New York, has been fine for years, with no problems whatsoever. The aircraft operating it was the 787, and the majority of gates can fit this aircraft. However, as you know, the A380 is a gigantic plane, and airports wanting to take on board this beast did have to make appropriate changes to their gates and even their facilities inside the airport. New York did this. However, when the aircraft is scheduled in, specifically to Terminal 1 at JFK, spaces are limited, and this means that the aircraft is always in a struggle to find a gate that can handle the deboarding and then the boarding of the Airbus A380. Simply as Forbes said, there is no dedicated gate for this Hi Fly A380 at the time it comes into the airport, which is obviously a problem. Peter Hines on Twitter tweeted, @FlyNorwegian and @NorwegianUK. We are flying London Gatwick to JFK on Tuesday at 17:05. I hear no gates were available for the replacement. A380 at JFK causing 4-hour delay Friday and Saturday. Same will happen on Tuesday. Please confirm as we need to update onward travel plans. Thanks. From this tweet, we can see that the problem stretches further than a simple delay. Passengers flying this route can in turn be impacted with future flights because of these delays. This means time and likely money will be spent trying to reorganize travel, and while delays are definitely a thing we all have to experience, ones that can be avoided through appropriate planning and scheduling are always going to hurt that little bit more for travelers. This problem could have been far worse, especially if the wet lease was for, let's say, a month or 2 months. Thankfully for all parties, it wasn't for a long amount of time, and hopefully if operations like this occur again, this problem can be avoided by just simply adjusting the scheduling. What are your thoughts on this big scheduling problem that occurred during this wet lease, and do you believe it really did impact the operations? In my eyes, I think it did put a dampener on Norwegian operating the aircraft, but as I mentioned, I'm now crossing my fingers in the future we don't see something like this happen again. I'd like to thank you very much for your continued support that you show on every single video I put out. I do look forward to you all joining me in the next one.
All of these broken dreams in flight, and we'll fly.